Michael, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Michael Pickard. I live in Highland Park, Illinois. Uh, I've had three different careers and reinvented myself in each of them. And now I'm a full-time author, and I've just released my 10th novel.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
Well, I got started in writing in 1993. The first book came out in 1998. That's a whole story unto itself. Uh, but I started doing science fiction novels. I've always enjoyed sci-fi, uh, and it was a very comfortable place for me, a place where I can extend my imagination and come up with situations, worlds, characters. Uh, More recently, after writing several sci-fi novels where the protagonist wasn't the detective, wasn't a an amateur detective, but had to pull together information to solve something about their life, something about the situation they'd gotten involved in. I thought it was about time to test my chops to see if I could do a mystery novel. Uh, and because you need to put your toe in the water and go gently, this is a three-volume detective epic, the first volume of which got released last week.
Amazing. What inspired you to write your books?
Well, so that takes me back to the story in 1993. My daughter was going to overnight camp for the first time. It's going to be a week, her first away experience. As a father, I was nervous about her experience, didn't know how it was going to come down. And she said, Daddy, I want you to write me every day. I wasn't going to write her what time I got up and what I had for breakfast and what work was like. So I set the bar higher and I decided I would write her something that she would actually want to read, something that would be funny, something that I might be able to embed some life lesson into, and something that would make her feel good about her experience at camp. So I decided to write a story about an alien from another planet who came to Earth and attended overnight camp, her camp. We had gone to an orientation, so I knew what the camp was like, how it was laid out in the various buildings, and no plan, just my fingers on the keyboard of my Mac at the time. And I started writing her letters, uh, Dear Samantha, and then it was chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. So I did 7 chapters that year. Uh, she came back and said, I love the story. I shared it with my cabin mates. So instead of having one member audience, I had a dozen, which made me feel good. And then I stopped writing for the fall and the winter and the spring. And next summer rolls around. She's going to camp for 2 weeks. And she says, Are you going to continue the story? Well, we did that for 5 years. Uh, and suddenly I had critical mass. I'm talking to people at work, family members, and they say, Well, I want to read the story. I want to read the story. So I put everything together, did an editing pass. No one else had seen it. And I packaged it up and used a print on demand service. And this was early in the life of print on demand. And put out my first novel, which was the Gurfnet Chronicles. Uh, I sold them out of the trunk of my car. I went to a family reunion, sold one to one of my wife's cousins. He started reading it, and maybe 20 pages in, he took me aside and said, So why was Gurfnet picked to come to Earth and go to camp? Well, no one had ever asked that question before. 90,000 words later, I had a prequel. And receiving the books at home, smelling the ink, seeing my name on the cover, my words inside, every time it gave me goosebumps. So I was hooked. I just kept writing.
I love that. That's so amazing. When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for?
Well, obviously, the first couple of books were targeted at my daughter and people who were teens. Uh, Although I used some obtuse alien language in the books to make them fun. After that, I started to move up in age. So high school and adult, where there's no top end to adult. Uh, One of the things that I do, and if I'm successful, it comes through, is I try to include in the stories something that is thought provoking, something that after someone reads the end and closes the book, that there is a thought that lingers with them that engages their brain. And if I can do that, and I don't do it with a baseball bat, it's very subtle, but it's embedded in the story. But if I can do that and have somebody think for a moment about some issue, some topic, something in the novel, in my novel, uh, then I consider that a win.
I love that. That's super unique. And you've touched on this next question with your amazing story, but how long have you been writing and what made you really start?
Well, I think I've pretty well answered that one with the story about my daughter. Uh, when I was writing to her, I was still employed, full time job. Uh, so I'd write it at night, I'd write it on the weekends, and they were just letters to her. So they were pretty short form, a couple of pages. Uh, when I started to tackle bigger things, the prequel, uh, which wasn't done as letters, and all the subsequent sci-fi novels and the detective one, uh, I became more planful. So outlines. Early on, I didn't do a lot with character backgrounds. Now I do deep dives on character backgrounds. And I almost exclusively use National Novel Writing Month as the event during which I take my planned novel and dump it out of my head. I create what I call my mountain of words, and that's trademarked, uh, to give me the raw material from which I will later craft scenes and chapters.
I love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Uh, so I'm not the kind of person who wakes up in the morning, has a bowl of cereal, and writes for an hour. I will have I will have sessions where I bounce back and forth because I'm never lately. I'm not doing just one book. Uh, so the first book, Creative Deductions, Home Run, is now on the market, but there are two more volumes to complete the story. So one of them is a critique. One I'm writing, but I'm also editing a sci-fi novel because I can't get away from sci-fi. That is a social satire sci-fi novel. And of course, I'm doing early planning on my NaNoWriMo novel for later this year. And then my grandson, who's 10, uh, sometimes engages me in writing a story for him. I did that once, The Boy Who Sneezed Money, uh, which I self published. Uh, but he has another one he wants me to do that's a little longer. And so I've been doing those chapters occasionally. He earns those by good behavior.
I love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Um, I unplug the landline, I turn off my cell phone. I do not use music in background. I find it distracting. My head will start to think about the song, sing the song in my head. So I can't do music. Uh, so a quiet space. Uh, I have a large, high resolution 27-inch screen. Uh, so if the font's a little small, I can increase it and still have a lot of page on the screen. Uh, it is not, I'm not waiting for the muse, uh, but I do find that I've trained my brain so that the last hour of sleep, I can focus my brain on some writing topic. and then a hot shower. All the world melts away, and you can just let your mind go, and it almost always goes to story. So it is typical for me to jump out of the shower with a towel around myself, run to my office, and scribble down a note about all the things I thought about in the shower.
Love that. That's very unique and it gives you time to think. I love that you were able to train yourself that way. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Uh, so I will always have a mug of either cold water or cold water with a spritz of flavoring in it to keep myself hydrated. I think that's really important. Uh, I'm not as active as I need to be, uh, but writers need to keep their butts planted in the chairs. But I do need to keep hydrated.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
So this is my kryptonite topic. Uh, I've been reading lots of books about writing craft, and I will read sci-fi every once in a while. There is an old saying that if you're a writer, you have to read a lot. And I think the motivation behind that is if you read a lot, you can figure out what good craft is. Because I don't think they're saying read a lot just so you enjoy yourself, that there's a purpose to it. The way my brain is wired, and it's wired for a lot of great things, but one of the ways my brain is wired is it can't identify good craft from example. So if I read a very well crafted book, at the end, I can say, I really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed the story. I believe the characters. I felt something when I read it. All the good things that a writer would want to hear. But I won't learn the the best ways to do things from reading someone else's work. I learned that from critique groups, beta readers, uh, mentors, and classes. Uh, Tell me what I did wrong and why it's wrong, and I'll try to stop doing it. But to try to figure out something from an example is very difficult for me. And so I don't spend a lot of my time reading. I spend my available time writing.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Um, a couple that come to mind. Douglas Adams, because all of my stories have some small thread of humor, even if there are murders going on. There are statements made in situations where I expect/hope that my readers will smile, maybe even laugh. Uh, and Douglas Adams does it in every paragraph, maybe not every sentence, but in every paragraph, there is something funny. Uh, and so I love his work. Uh, and then I go back to the classics because those are the ones I read early. Uh, uh, Asimov and Powell uh, and all the standards.
Love that. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Uh, I don't remember reading a lot when I was young, except comic books. I loved comic books. I spent way too much money on comic books, and of course, didn't keep them. So uh, I can't retire on selling them as antiques. Uh, but uh, my favorite was Superman uh, because of all of his powers. I thought that was cool. A number of years ago, I wrote a story about a an archaeologist slash professor who had been kicked out of one university and had to go work at some small college in a small town, who through an accident gains temporary superpowers. And then over time they fade and he goes back to the way he was. Uh, that book screams for illustration, but I have not found an illustrator for it. Uh, but that harkens back to my days of watching, reading Superman.
I love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you're gonna automatically grab it?
So, and I've lost the author's name. That's terrible. But the author of The Martian, who also wrote um, Hail Mary. Uh, I've uh, well, I saw the movie. I didn't read the book, but I read Hail Mary and was fascinated with the story and how he conceived the plot. I did. Uh, I read it as a writer. I watch movies as a writer. I watch TV shows as a writer. So uh, my brain is trying to process uh, what mistakes there are because I'm always in critique and feedback mode. I happen to believe that one of the best gifts you can give anybody is feedback. And if they're in the mood to receive it, you're helping them toward a goal. So I'm big on feedback and on critique, which is why I participate in critique groups. So I I didn't have a lot of feedback for him in Hail Mary, but that was a great book.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Uh, well, I know what I would tell them if they wanted to get started in writing. Uh, I would advise them that they shouldn't undertake a large scale project like a novel unless it had a place in both their head and their heart. Writing is tough and it takes years. Creative Deductions home run from the first word on the screen until the release was about 2 years and 4 months, but who was counting? Uh, and so you get to read your words over and over again, and you have to gather feedback on what's working and what's not working. And sometimes something that you've written and you think is perfect and has to be in the novel, you're told by critical mass of people doesn't belong there because it takes the reader's eye off the ball. And you have to be able to accept that feedback as useful feedback. So I think everyone has a story in them. I don't know that everyone has the stamina to get that story out in uh, a clear way, a polished way. Uh, but if you believe in the story, and I won't undertake a story unless it has my head and my heart, uh, write the story. Dump it out of your brain as fast as you can, because without words in the computer or your device, there's nothing to edit. So just get it out.
I love that. That led into our next question of what would you tell someone just starting out to write their own book? So I'm going to throw a twist. Do you have any advice about how someone could go out and find a critique group like you have?
Uh, so it isn't terribly difficult. Uh, there are institutions like Meetup and Shut Up and Write that are international organizations. They have chapters all over the world. I found some of my most recent beta readers by attending Shut Up and Write meetings. So critique doesn't go on there, but you meet people, and that networking leads you to people of similar interest. And often I will exchange, I'll beta read yours if you'll beta read mine, which I think is a fair exchange. There are some people who beta read for me who've said, I really like your work. They become fans and they say, next time you have something to beta read, let me know because I want to beta read it. Uh, And I love those folks because I never expected that when I started writing, I would have a fan base. And it's small, but it's dedicated. These people enjoy my writing, they get pleasure out of it, and they're willing to take the time to uh, read something and provide feedback. And the last time I looked, time is the only commodity that you can't buy more of. So if people are spending their time on my work, that's an honor.
I love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Uh, well, my name is on 35 US patents. Sometimes people are shocked at that. I have judged the Chicago Public School Science Fair for 48 years. Uh, that's a shocker. Um, and that when writing becomes more work than pleasure, and sometimes that happens, the way I refresh my brain is I go write computer software. It exercises a different part of my brain. And after writing some code, I can come back and work on one or two or three or four projects.
It's amazing. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Well, I feel the obligation to give a small commercial. Uh, my my books are all available at Amazon. I created a shortcut web address, www.gerfnit, spelled GERFNIT.com. That redirects to my Amazon author page. Uh, your listeners will see 10 novels, uh, one children's book, The Boy Who Sneezed Money. It's up there for 99 cents, and Lucas gets all the proceeds. I bring him envelopes of coins. Uh, and one collection of juried short stories called Shorts. So if you're not into long form and you just want to read uh, an essay or a short story, and this is a collection of those, uh, that's available both in paperback. It's a small paperback or ebook. Um, the latest novel is the Creative Deductions Home Run, my first detective novel, the first of 3 volumes, and the other volumes will follow in subsequent years. Uh, and there's that's about it.
Amazing. That covers most of our last question, but there's still a couple of things. So, where's the best place for readers to find your book? Do you offer signed copies? I know a lot of readers love those, and the best place to connect with you.
So I've only done signed copies at uh, physical events, but if someone wanted a signed copy, I'm sure I could work out something. Uh, U.S. mail still works, and there's book rate, so might be able to do something. Uh, I like getting email because it makes me feel important, even though it's just an email. Uh, so I can receive emails at author@gerfnit.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way, everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure being with you.